Let's bring in Dr. Kevin Roberts, who is president of the Heritage Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. What do you make of the attacks against Joe Manchin? I mean, it's a place that he's becoming very familiar with, unfortunately for him. But it wasn't even his vote that sank this bill. They needed 60 to pass it.
That's right. I mean, we see a lot of things about the radical left, Carly. One of them is they can't do math. They needed 60 votes. They were 11 votes shy. But to your point, we have seen, unfortunately, in the last 2 weeks, the radical left show their true colors. You know, I have both the privilege and burden of working in Washington, D.C., literally around the corner from the Supreme Court building. And it is so distasteful to see the level of rhetoric there at the justices' homes. I think we have to understand as a country that it used to be that this wasn't a liberal or a conservative thing. It was an American thing, that you honored this disagreement, whether it's Senator Manchin or whether it's the conservative justices. The radical left isn't playing by the rules of the game anymore. We have to recognize that on our side.
But Dr. Roberts, they think this is going to help them come the midterms. They think this is the issue that's going to change the tide, the way the tide has been going with Republicans basically claiming victory in the House come November. Are the Democrats misreading their media and Twitter echo chamber right now on this, or is the world really on their side?
I'll write a headline for you, Todd. Absolutely they are. And they're doing that for two reasons. The first is Americans find, to the previous point, that this is so distasteful, they're turning against them. But the second thing is, we know from 2 or 3 polls that we have seen, that we have done in the last couple of weeks, that Americans understand the radicalism of this pro-abortion agenda, which, remember, in California would actually have someone be aborted 1 week after they're out of the womb. That this is not something that Americans want to see. It's murder. And the more that our side can talk about that reality, but also recognize that overturning Roe is pro-woman, pro-baby, pro-dad, it's pro-America, I think the more we're actually on our side going to see this be a net positive.
Are you surprised that they haven't found out who leaked this document? When this whole thing started, I said it's going to be 24, 48 hours tops. We still don't know who did it.
It's a great disappointment to me that the manager of the court, the Chief Justice, with whom I have no relation, by the way, has not gotten to the bottom of this. And, you know, if it were you or me or Todd, we would have known that in 72 hours. That's what the American people need. So you think that
he does know?
I think he's moving slowly, Carly. And it's unacceptable.
There's basically 12 people, more or less, that it could be. Should be able to do an investigation much quicker than this.
Yeah, that's right. This is not rocket science.
I want to get your thoughts on this. A federal judge extending the order blocking the Biden administration from rolling back Title 42 early. In the end, Dr. Roberts, will Title 42 be in place or will it be gone?
I'm going to make a bit of a controversial prediction. I think just as we were seeing a consensus emerge in Congress and around the country against the radical leftist abortion agenda, we're seeing a pretty impressive consensus that's bipartisan emerging toward keeping Title 42 in place. Heritage is certainly helping our friends on both sides of the aisle want to do that. I think the more we can focus on the impact of that going away for all of us, for that matter, for immigrants themselves, the better off we are and the more optimistic I am it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, here's Texas Congressman Chip Roy on this border issue. Listen to how he breaks it down. Watch this.
The fact that Title 42 is about to expire is going to be actually the final nail in the coffin to the total failure by this administration to secure the border. This isn't compassion to put a big sign on our border saying, come on in, and then let people flood the zone, allowing cartels to abuse them and allow them to get abused in the process and die in the process. And then Americans take it on the chin in terms of tax dollars, schools, in terms of what we deal with finding dead migrants, in terms of fentanyl, in terms of dead Americans, dangerous individuals, or the 42 people on a terrorist watch list.
I mean, he summed it up well. And I know that the Heritage Foundation and several other conservative organizations and former members of the Trump administration are urging Republicans to unite around a bill on border security. So if and when the tide changes in November, there could be something substantial to bring to the president's desk. What's in that proposal that you support?
Well, the proposal, first of all, is historic. We have never had this number of high-quality center-right organizations sign on to the same objective. And the highlights of that bill, of that proposal, Carly, are that it starts with border security. It's one of the most pro-immigration systems you can have, which is to say that we're going to honor the rule of law by having a secure border so that you can have a transparent system for people who want to come here legally come here. But it begins and ends with border security, it's really important to sum up here that it does not include amnesty. We have some senators, including senators who are right on some other issues, talk about amnesty. That is a non-starter. The Heritage Foundation and every single one of those organizations will blow up amnesty. I want to speak really clearly about that. This is an issue of border security. Nearly 3 million illegal aliens have come into this country since Biden was inaugurated. Unacceptable, it's inhumane, and it's un-American.
Unequivocal on the issue of amnesty there, definitely getting your position in. Rock solid. Meantime, President Biden once again passing the buck and blaming Republicans for the soaring 8.3% inflation and record high gas prices. Take a listen.
My Republican colleagues say these programs to help the working class and middle class people, they say that's why we have inflation. They're dead wrong. Under my predecessor, the great MAGA king, the deficit increased every single year he was president.
You went out on a limb on the first topic. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Is it safe to say that Joe Biden has no plan to solve inflation other than to basically lie and accuse Republicans of doing the very thing that he is doing?
Todd, my friend, I'm out on the limb with you.
Sure.
So, yes, that's what's happening. All kidding aside, because we really ought to be weeping about this. Of course, it's hard not to comment on the president's inability to communicate well. But the point is, this is all Biden's fault. I mean, there are complicating factors. That is, inflation is Biden's fault. We continue to spend recklessly. We continue to forget that inflation isn't this abstract concept. It's a concept that affects all American families when we're at the grocery store, when we're paying the electricity bill. It's really, really crucial for us to put pressure on the Biden administration to stop spending recklessly and to stop blaming everyone else for a problem they created.
Yeah. And if you look at the numbers, inflation 1.4% when he took office. Now it's 8.3. And how about him calling Trump the MAGA king?
MAGA king.
Wow. That'll wake you up. Dr. Roberts, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Love the labels there on the left. Meantime.